please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. Market regulator SEBI has announced some crucial steps for market reforms. Now, this includes reduction in announcement time for IPO price band, replacement of sub-broker category by authorized person category, shareholding of foreign holding to be harmonized to 15% across MIIs, tighter norms for auditors, tighter norms for transfer agents, for middle agents, and one important point that had been pointed out by SEBI chairman was that they have already completed the investigation in the NSE co-location case and will be conducting enforcement action on this very soon. Let's bring in Ashvin Parekh, managing partner of Ashvin Parekh Advisory Services, who is joining in, and Dipen Mehta, the member of BSE and NSE, joining in on the phone line. Ashvin Parekh, let me come to you first. First, tell me about the implication of the first point that the SEBI chairman pointed out of reducing the IPO price band announcement time from 2 days to 5 days. How much of a benefit would this be? And also, they have brought in a monitoring agency now for IPOs. Earlier, the IPO limit for monitoring was over 100 crore rupees. So, how much of a benefit would this be to the IPO cycle, specifically these 2 points?
Well, I have a few observations. I mean, to begin with, we now know, that in the last 3 or 4 years, gradually, the primary market, for equities really once again started growing. And we do come across now several good IPOs. I mean, both in the upper sort of segment where you have very large IPOs, and then you have a lot of mid-sized corporations also, corporates also, which are going to the market. Now, in that backdrop, somewhere the investor protection has been the primary focus for the regulator, and rightly so. The committee that they had constituted has submitted a report. There were about 150 odd different recommendations. But the critical ones which have got approved, and which are very interesting to observe. One is, of course, the monetary agency to cover larger number of IPOs. That's the first one. And then the reduction of number of days over which the whole processing has to be carried out. These are some good measures. We are once again going gradually towards some of the more advanced markets. I suppose digitalization of our entire system. I mean, the fact that we have a large amount of security on NSDL, for example, and I mean, that is on digital platforms, does help the IPO sort of process to be managed within a certain time frame. Okay. But these are some very, very commendable regulations, I must say.
Mr. Parekh, before I bring Dipen into the conversation, what do you make of the ICDR regulations being rationalized?
Well, once again, you see, basically there was a lot of debate about both the sides of the issue. Exactly. But I suppose they've been normalized, and there's been a huge amount of deliberation on this. They've been normalized. One has to get into the detail, but the general impression one is getting is that a lot of sort of debate has really been reduced to, very, very, very practical approaches.
Okay, Dipen, I want to bring you in on the point of the overall norms for MIS being harmonized. So the shareholding limit across MIS now is at 15% across the board. So for exchanges, for clearing corporations, for depositories, what do you think that means in terms of inflows?
Well, I think it has been recommended by all the MIs that they would like some flexibility over there. And there is merit in that particular request, and which is what SEBI has in fact agreed to in its latest board meeting. So I'm not surprised. It's not going to have a material impact per se on the MIs, except that it makes entry of foreign investors easier into the the exchanges and the depositories and other market infrastructure related companies.
Dipen, the fact that a consultation paper has now been launched for third-party entities, specifically the role of an auditor, they want to go more into the definition of an auditor, the kind of control an auditor has. How significant would that be, specifically for keeping in mind the recent flow of auditor resignations and movements that we have seen in specific stocks?
I think it's very important from point of view of minority shareholders, because as minority shareholders, we only have to rely on the auditor's certification and his due diligence that whatever numbers are produced by the company are in fact genuine, and that they are absolutely authentic, and that there is no there is no making of the books over here, which had been a common practice in the past. But I think, if auditors are pulled up for any misdemeanors or any certification which has not been backed by proper due diligence on their part, then it just put a scare in the minds of the auditor, and to that extent they'll be more vigilant. And that's great news from minority shareholder point of view. See, the business of investing is all about trust in the company's management and the company's operations and its accounting and its financial statements. And the gatekeeper for that trust is the auditor. So if there is more vigilance on the auditor, it is great for minority shareholders.
Okay, fair enough. Closing comments then from Mr. Parekh. Mr. Parekh, what stands out from you from a market perspective? And quickly comment on the point of auditors as well. How significant would that be? Would this bring some kind of relief to minority investors like Dipen was saying? And any other point that stands out from purely a market perspective?
Yeah, I mean, let me take the auditor's question first, and then I'll go to the market impact. So as far as the auditors, the new regulations associated with the auditors are concerned, I mean, there is a general belief now, even in the banking sector also, we have seen, that the dependence of banks on the audited statements has been to a large extent one of the major factors, which has come under question on account of a lot of defaults in the recent past. And time and again, we are getting warning signals to the audit profession, saying that, look, they have to tighten up their belts, they have to really do some amount of these regulations, will really put a certain order of vigilance, a certain order of care that the auditors will have to exercise.
Sure.
And I suppose more than the auditors themselves, the audit body itself, the institute itself, will have to really come out with some very clear guidelines on these practices. On the market impact, very conducive, I would say. The market is really growing for the primary issuances, and I suppose controls associated with protecting the particularly minority shareholders and retail shareholders' interest is something that does become very critical. I mean, I would certainly say that a lot of measures suggested by the committee have been actually adopted.